Good evening. Can everybody hear us all right? Let me check the comment.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening, waiting. As long as right, this is Gary Clark. I'm Nathan Kirkton of Constitutional Movement Worldwide. Just a general discussion tonight, really, because we've been on for a long time.
Yeah.
Um,
Good evening, Steve-O. How you doing?
yeah, evening, mate. Few things going on at the moment. Evening, Dennis. Dennis from British Resistance is in.
Hi, evening,
Yeah, a few
Dennis.
things going on. A lot of um, a lot of quitting going on all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Which is well, some people are alarmed, and they should be alarmed in certain ways because we've been saying this for quite a while. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's being done on purpose, personally.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Um, they've been trying to destroy government. This is what people don't realise about the European Union. The European Union for about 50 years, really. Um, their whole thing has basically been to destroy all industries, the armies, the police, everything, so they can basically
Yeah.
put in their own version of it, even everyone. So it's no surprise really that we've, especially since Brexit. I mean, let's face it, it's been quite a few years since Brexit, and we still are attached to all the European treaties that are actually,
Yeah.
believe it or not, govern us. As I keep telling everybody, it's like if people look up community laws, they've been put into our statute books.
Yeah.
They're called community laws. These are all the laws from the treaties. So it's things like the Barcelona Declaration of 1995, where our government signed a treaty that states that they guarantee that they will use laws and the media and everything to make sure we accept Islam. Things like the Nice Treaty. We've got the Lisbon Treaty. I mean, Lisbon Treaty is one of the worst ones, but they all are actually linked. Most people don't get this, but these are all community laws. These are all treaties that have been put into our statute books. So basically, and they still have rule over us. This is what people don't get. Yeah, we come out of the EU, but we are still bound by these community laws.
Yeah. Well, it was the Nice Treaty that triggered the Barons into invoking Article 61.
Hello, darling. My missus is in. Well, this is the
So,
thing. That's exactly it. It's an Easter egg because a lot of people don't realise, and I think a lot of people did because they use clever wording. A lot. I mean, you and I know
yeah.
we've gone over them so many times, but they use a lot of
Yeah.
clever wording in the EU treaties, and they have done for many years. A lot of them are hidden as well. A lot of them you actually really have to go searching for because they don't make a lot of these public.
No.
I mean, a lot of
And
people didn't
then
know about the
the,
Lisbon
the other
Treaty.
thing, yeah, and the other thing, like you've said, they've done, they're not stupid enough to put them all into one document.
No,
So some will be in one document and they'll say, look at the next document. And that's how they've done it. They've put certain ones in certain documents so it doesn't look too suspect.
exactly. They're not going to basically. They want to completely superstate. We know that that it's in some of their documents. It's been the intention from the beginning to basically create a superstate and have like basically sort of certain parts of the whole of you, but basically broken up. So we'll have kind of like certain little areas. I think I think it was 9 in total. I think they had planned for like England alone. So you've got kind of different districts. But this is the thing, going to the European Union, a lot of people don't realise this is like the Nice Treaty and that lot. It, this is why Parliament say they are sovereign. It's because of going into the EU. It's because basically, if you watch anything, if you type in most of like, things about the EU, look at Juncker and the rest of them, they've been saying for decades that we have to give up more of our sovereignty. It's all about sovereignty. Now, like most people would have been watching the World Economic Forum, and I mean they state quite clearly state themselves that the countries of the world need to drop their nationality. They need to give up their sovereignty to a higher power, which is them, which is 15 unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats that haven't got our best interest. It's about business, and this is what people don't understand about the European superstate and the EU. Um, it started off that they sort of tricked everybody to think that yeah, this is about trade and that it's going to benefit us, but it didn't actually. In the end, all it's done is get rid of small businesses. It's now destroying medium-sized businesses. So all it is big corporations that are going to be controlling the whole of Europe, uh, which leads them up to the whole thing of um, this thing where you've got was it you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, because this is what people don't
Yeah,
realise, that they intend to take all the businesses away from people, so you won't have a livelihood. I mean, let's face it, they've already attacked businesses, i.e. like with the building trade. You know this yourself, Gary. The
yeah,
materials are going up. It's getting impossible unless you are a massive corporation that can afford to buy in bulk and get your prices down, and even then it's still quite high. You're getting absolutely annihilated because you can't afford to buy the materials and keep working at the price you was. So all it's doing is
it's a
driving up the price. It's ridiculous.
yeah, it's a billionaires club, not a
Yeah.
millionaires club. So
Well,
basically, unless you're a billionaire or you've got a hundred million or so, if you've just worked your balls off from the time you're 16 and now you're in your late 50s, early 60s, and you've just made your first million and you go, yes, you're not wanted. You ain't going to
no,
be part of that club.
we're
Even
seeing
though you've
this
got
in.
enough money to live on for the rest of your life, you're chicken fodder to them. That's nothing. That's like 50 pence to them.
Yeah. Well,
So,
this is the thing. We're seeing it happening now in the UK. We're going back to a two-tier system. They want rid of the middle class. I mean, we got the middle class started getting too much money. We started getting too near the upper class and getting into their clubs
yeah,
and into their areas. They don't want it no more. This has
no,
always been the thing. They lulled us into a false sense of security and let us think that we're going to prosper as much as them, and we haven't. We ain't going to. This is the thing. I mean, I'm not being funny. This whole thing about building walls, we're not allowed to build walls. We've got to drop our nationality and all that lot. So basically, every part of our identity we've got to drop. Now, most
yeah,
people who follow what's going on will understand things like with the jab and other bits like that. I mean, they're telling us what we can and can't do. I mean,
yeah,
England, we have our own constitution, so we can actually fight back against it, but a lot of people can't. This is what people don't understand. And as for dropping the walls and we're all in it together, it's like, well, take Klaus Schwab. Okay, Klaus Schwab actually bought up the land between himself and the headquarters of the World Economic Forum. So he can literally walk or drive to work on his own land. He doesn't have to go off his own land at all.
yeah,
So how is that being with the people? And they are literally doing it. Look since the 70s. We've been discussing this for ages. Look at since the 70s. Look at for instance the EU buildings. That they have been fortifying their own buildings because I think they know, like we're starting to see now, with like we was discussing earlier, Gary. You've got the Dutch farmers uprising, you've got Italy uprising, you've got loads of people starting to uprise because they're starting to understand what's going on. They're being forced. I mean, a lot of people don't know why the Dutch farmers are actually up in arms. The main reason why they're up in arms is because the Dutch farmers are being told that they have to set aside some of their land for asylum
for
centres.
migrants,
Yeah,
to
for
build
migrants.
migrant centres.
Yep.
Yeah,
So they ain't going to stop the flow of migrants. They intend to
no,
increase the flow of migrants. I mean, it's the same happening now. We've got basically they're just doing it a different way in England, but we've got the same thing now. The government are actually offering farmers incentives to retire, to lease or to sell off their land. And again, this is just going to be done for asylum centres and stuff like that. They
yeah,
don't. They are not going to curb it. They are not going to curb it. There's never been intention. Like I said, with our parliament, they never intended to come out of the EU. That's why we've been
no.
bound to all the treaties. That's why they've kept the European Court of Human Rights and all that lot. The
Well, that's why
European
me
Court of
and
Human
you,
Rights. Hang on.
yeah, that's why me and you said way back with the MEP voting, don't do it because you're just voting yourselves back in. Then we was called conspiracy theorists, we was called nut jobs. And what happened when they all voted? You all voted yourselves back in.
Well, it's not back into the EU, but we all
No, but you know
voted.
what I mean? They
Yeah.
voted back in
Yeah.
for the MEPs, etc. And it didn't free you up from the EU, it tied you back in even
No,
more so.
all they done was basically trick us to do a vote, so
Yeah,
it bound us by the treaties. We couldn't come out of them
yeah,
treaties because everybody wanted to
no.
stay within the European community and all that lot. It just basically just kept us tied through the back door. We still
But they
haven't
had to
done
come
what we
up
need
with
to.
they had to come up with a ruse to do it, and that was a ruse. And me and you called that ruse, and we said, "Don't do it, don't vote."
Well, this is the thing we actually put out, and we actually posted that all the details, it literally from their own documents. The fact that the whole vote would have tied us to the treaties, it would have kept it. It wasn't about what
Yeah,
people think. I mean, it's like we voted to leave, so why would we vote to have MEPs in the
yeah.
European Parliament when we're not part of it? It was never
And
about
then you
that.
had people. Then you had people. We ain't going to name any names, but you had people saying we're going against the government to get us out of the EU, but we're standing for MEPs.
Yeah, basically that's the nutshell. Yes, it's sort of like, well, unless we've got people in the European Parliament, we can't fight to get out. It's like, well, we got out because we voted out.
Yeah,
It was the
yeah,
oxymoron of it. We did get attacked quite a lot for that, actually, but like I said, we put out the exact documents that they was using. It showed that what they was voting for, but people didn't want to believe it because they
yeah,
was too wrapped up
yeah.
in the hype of people wanting to go for the MEP ship. And we had people literally, again, not naming any names, but there was people that was claiming to bring court cases against the government because they didn't do Brexit properly, who were running for an MEP seat. I
That's what I
mean,
just said.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, at the time we got attacked, but it was literally, what was it, 2 weeks after the vote was over, we
Yeah,
had like some of the leading barristers of the country. We had people like Godfrey Bloom and all that lot. They come out and
yeah,
backed us and said, no, this is what's just happened. This is what they've just done to us.
yeah. They mirrored what we
Ridiculous.
said. They said exactly the same as what we said. It was a stupid thing to do. And here we are. But people don't listen and they don't want to listen now. It's like you don't want to get too hooked up on these so called acts of nature that's
Mm.
happening, where you've had the Vatican's just apparently been hit, then you had the Georgia Guidestone being hit.
Yeah,
These people are vile, evil scumbags, and these people will be using military style weapons to do this sort of shit to make it look like it's been done by
yeah,
nature,
terrorism.
etc., and giving you the chance and trying to get you to rise up in every country so they can quash it because that's what it gives them the power to do. They can, like Nathan, we're going to talk about this anyway. It allows them then with domestic terrorism, which that's what class what it is when you try and start to uprise, and then they'll invoke 222 security clause Lisbon Treaty.
Yes, and Article 222 of the Lisbon Treaty actually, and we actually signed it. Britain actually signed it. I think it was 2 weeks, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly, before we actually had the referendum and got us out of it. So just before we
yeah,
left the EU, because we was going to be bound to the treaties anyway, they enacted 222. 222 actually allows the European Union to come to the aid of British Parliament, not English, British Parliament, if they basically party to a domestic uprising, and a lot of people don't understand what the whole thing actually meant. What it means is if the people start to unlawfully, I mean, the only lawful way we've got is Article 61. We have to use our constitution. If we just start to rise up and start to just like trash things or attack Parliament or do some of what's been going on with certain sort of people claiming to do things under common law and that lot, which is not actually lawful and not actually anywhere near any kind of law that we actually have, it's classed as domestic terrorism. And what they've done is, so if we go against them and what they're doing, if we don't use a lawful remedy for it, a lawful route, it's domestic terrorism. So it allows them to bring a foreign army to our shores to help quell it. So
yeah.
they will not have any allegiance to us. It will be a foreign army. They'll be on our shores,
Number
and the
one.
whole point will be to stop us from taking out our government and stopping it happening. The only way we
Yeah,
can actually do it, and we've been saying this for many, many years, and we've proved it in a lot of ways, is to use Article 61, to use our constitution, because our
yeah,
constitution is binding on the government and the crown. And if we use our constitution and it's upheld, then everything they've done that is contrary to our constitution, which means going against our constitution. So if our constitution doesn't say they can do it, it means it's void. Like I said, it's the maximum. The Queen can do no harm. So I
yeah.
mean, the King can do no harm, but it means that
This is what
anything
we.
she does that is not lawful or constitutional is void by proxy. It means that it's like it never happened. But we've actually got to uphold it.
Yeah, and this is why we need to get into Article 61. Do it correctly, do the due process, all the correct steps using the barons, because they don't forget what basically happened in 2001, ladies and gentlemen, was the
Right.
barons invoked what started in 1999 when they actually discussed it all, but I think it was
Yeah.
invoked in March 2001. So it
Yeah.
took two, they didn't do it rightly. They looked
Look
into
at
it properly. It took 2 years.
because they had to do the process as well. It had to be
Yeah,
put towards the barons, the 25
yeah.
barons. It had to be discussed. It had to go through a
That's
lawful
what I'm
process.
saying.
They did the
So
lawful
it,
process.
it took 2 years to do. And basically, they went in March and went, there you go. You've just entered the Nice Treaty, which is not only unlawful, it's high treason.
It
So
is.
we are invoking Article 61. And the basically was saying to us, the people, there you go. We've spotted high treason. We've invoked Article 61. What do you, the people, want us to do about it? That's basically what they did in 2001. But
Exactly.
nobody knew what was going on back then.
Yeah, well, it was put in the papers and stuff like that, but people didn't really pick it up because, again, most of the media, well, all of the media really, is owned by the very people that are actually trying to do all
Yeah,
this to us. So it was never meant to get out. And it did,
no,
but it was never meant to. But this is what people don't realise. It's like, it's not a case of the Barons invoked 61 and then you go off and do it. The whole point is the Barons invoked it basically on our behalf. And
yeah,
like Gary says, it's what do we want to do? Because we have to make that decision. Because unfortunately, we've been indoctrinated to think that all we have to do is vote and Parliament to do all our bidding for us. It doesn't work like that in law. Under our laws, we have to uphold our constitution. We have to uphold our common law rights, our inalienable rights. We have to do that ourselves. So it takes every single man and woman to enter into Article 61 and actually do their duty to actually make this for
yeah,
to bring it to force, basically. And what Article
yeah,
61 does, it removes the power from the Crown, which by proxy removes the power from her Parliament. Because it's the Crown's Parliament, it's not technically ours, and this is what people don't
yeah,
realise. They never work for us. Um, the, the Parliament we have now is basically the British Tea Company, the East India
yeah.
Tea Company. It has been since for a couple of hundred years. This is what people don't realise. We was occupied
That's
in a way,
another video, but we will do that video.
same as Australia. Australia, Corporation of Australia, it's been occupied stuff, and this is slowly, like Gary said, they've been doing these European treaties for about 40 years, bit by bit, by bit by bit. Slowly, catchy monkey. They've actually been coming in and taking away our sovereignty. That's why you see Juncker saying you must give up your sovereignty. That's why you've got Klaus Schwab saying that we have to give up our sovereignty to a higher power. What they're saying is they're going to take over. I mean, Klaus Schwab in literally this year in the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab and a lot of his little mates in that little club has basically said that they are going to take everything from us by force.
Yeah,
They talk about having a worldwide army. So that World Economic Forum has got their own army. They've amassed their own army, the same as the British East India Tea Company had, which changed to our British Army. But
yeah,
they have built it and they intend to use it. And this is what people don't realise. It's not a case of waiting till they do something because when they actually put boots on the ground, it will be too late. And this is why
yeah,
me and Gabe, for so many years, been talking about Article 61 because it's the only way we can stop them in their tracks. Because if it does happen, it's an act of war.
yeah,
And that's when we can act, and that's when we have things like our army and all our soldiers who took an oath. Because what people don't realise is they think the oath goes against the Queen. It's not. The Queen has been I'll choose my words very carefully. The Queen has been. I was badly advised. Let's say that from a very young age. So the Queen was tricked herself, and this is what people don't realise. So you class it in a chess. The Queen has been captured from a very young age. You've got to remember her advisors were all middle-aged men of around about 40 to 55 years old. They knew what they was doing. They was part of this club. It's been happening for a very long time, longer than the European Union. I mean, this goes back to World War One. This started. And this is what people don't
yeah,
realise. Our queen was captured at a young age, and she's basically been tricked and deceived into signing things to the point where it's like the Nice Treaty, stuff like that. It now gets to the
yeah,
point where Parliament can sign things on her behalf. So it doesn't matter. I mean, most of the
yeah,
European treaties that we're signed up to, we haven't signed up to. We've never had a referendum to agree to it or anything like that. Our sovereignty has been given away. These are by public servants. Not even so much our prime minister and stuff like that. These are public servants. So these are ministers.
yeah.
Ministers have actually been
And
signing away our sovereignty.
2011, she signed the Parliament Act, the Queen, which basically took away all our powers.
Mm. Yep. And this is the thing, and that's constitutionally repugnant. I mean, they cannot do it. This is the thing. This is why,
No,
if we start to uphold our constitution, and it's starting to happen, we've got groups like the British Resistance now, with Dennis Morgan and Shatner. We've got CMW. We've
yeah,
got many other groups out there like who are doing common law and constitution. A lot are doing it in the right way. Are actually
yeah,
trying to get our constitution upheld, and that is the power we have. We have the power to take it all away from.
yeah. But we have to do it lawfully and peacefully because if not, because you'll just be labelled domestic terrorist, end up in prison, and then they'll have the boots on the street, and then that's it. But if you do it lawfully and peacefully, you can hurt them even more anyway, because instead of going protesting, you just withhold all your taxes, etc. So that
But
hurts them even more because
but
instead of going down to London in your hundreds of thousands and putting money in the London economy, you're keeping away. You're not paying anything, and nothing's going into the London economy.
well,
Nothing,
this
not
is
a round coin.
well, this is the thing. 2 seconds. Hanky, Kaylee was never part of CMW. She's supported us and she's promoted us, but she's never been part of CMW. CMW has always been the same since the beginning. It always will be. But thank you for following us. Um, Yeah, this is the thing. This is what people got to understand. It's like this is why under Article 61 we have the right to remove our taxes. We don't get to stop them forever and say we're never paying them, but we have the right to withhold our taxes from Parliament because what people don't realise is it's like with benefits. A lot of people seem to think that benefits get paid by the taxpayer. Now that is a subversion. That is a lie in itself because our benefits don't get paid by the taxpayer. Taxpayers' money don't act. That's why we've got a massive national debt because the taxpayers' money don't actually cover it all. This is a problem. All the benefits and stuff like that, it comes from we all have a crown trust in our name. A lot of people still try to this day say it's not true, but we actually all have a crown trust. I can prove that with
Yeah.
because it's all crown copyrighted. You are the beneficiary in that lot. This is your legal fiction. This is why we have to pay council tax as we are because we always do everything in our commercial name, i.e. our legal fiction. We are actually acting as a corporation in that manner, so therefore we can be charged council tax and stuff like that, which is what we will be doing and we'll be addressing in the future. That lot, bear with us. But this is what people don't realise. All the money we're giving to Parliament, they're giving away so they can build an army against us. And this is what people don't realise. We give a lot of money to the World Economic Forum and the European treaties and what they do. And all that happens is they're just building up a massive army and,
You,
and, and things to destroy us. I mean, it's like, for
you,
instance, one of
yeah.
the European treaties is the Climate Change Act of 2008. Now, the only people that have to abide by that is the UK. The rest of Europe don't.
You basically, ladies and gentlemen, you're funding your own demise without even realising it. But you're realising it now because we're telling you the truth.
I mean,
And that's exactly what you're doing.
yeah, I mean, take for instance, it's like the pretty much everyone is being hit hard with like the bills of like water, gas, electric, stuff like that. The cost of living crisis is pretty much, I would say, in fact, it's probably worse than the 1800s if we really think about it. It's just a lot of things. I mean, are slightly different, but on a scale of it, we're back in the 1800s. We've got so many people using food banks, and why we're all going through this. The royal family is on hardship themselves. They've had to borrow 30 million to keep their life going the way it's doing. You mean?
And while we've been doing this, the Parliament's just had another £2,500 rise
Yep, exactly.
not long
So
ago.
yep, all our bills are meant to be raising per annum about 2,500 to £3,000 a year, and Parliament have just given themselves a pay rise, so the energy crisis will not hit
No, and
and
that's
then
exactly
ignore.
what they do, and that's why they do it. But people don't want to listen. We've always said this, Nathan. The people, not just in the UK, around the world, they will reap what they sow, just like they always have done. And if you want to sit down and do nothing and bury your head and hope it all goes away, you will reap what they sow when they come to knock your door and say, right, you're going in a big smart city flat. We're coming to get you. You're going whether you want to go or not. Because
Two
that
seconds.
day will come.
Mere media mogul. No, this is not freedom of land stuff. We're not freedom of land. We're constitutionists. There is a massive difference. Um,
Yeah.
we use what is actually there and what is protected and what we use in this country for nearly 1,000 years. This is not freedom of land stuff. This is all researchable. It's all factual. You'll find it in the Houses Laws of England. Um, it's our constitution. This is like the coronation oath, Bill of Rights. It's all there. So no,
Yeah.
it's not freedom of land. But thank you
Everything
for
that's
asking
on
the
the
question.
government website.
Mm. Well, this is the thing. Most of this is actually on the government website. This is the thing, but they have lied
Yeah.
about it. It's like, for instance, when we talk about the Magna Carta. Um, Again, this is not freedom of land stuff, but when we talk about the Magna Carta, a lot of people sort of go on the government website and they say, well, there's only 4 clauses left. But what people don't realise, which I've proven myself in court, um, the Magna Carta they've actually repealed is the 1297 Magna Carta. Now, there's been lots of debates because people think the Magna Carta was basically annulled a year after. Can't be true because the Carta de Floresta, which is was done in 1217, which has basically been amalgamated into the Magna Carta. It's two documents that are actually part of all of one document, but most people only see the first one. That was done in 1217, so long after it was meant to be abolished. Plus, you've got the 1229 Magna Carta things. That basically 1215 is the true Magna Carta, and it's still in force today. It's like Jack Straw
And
said
that's
back in
why, and that's why in 2015 you had the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta.
I mean, Jack Straw said in 2000, year 2000, I think, it was around about the year 2000, round about when we was getting the Human Rights Act put into our statute books, that the Magna Carta is, in his own words, is just as binding on the Crown today as it was on the day it was sealed at Runnymede. Now, I can assure you there was only one Magna Carta sealed at Runnymede, the rest was not. The rest was
Yeah,
basically statute legal documents put out by the
yeah,
Crown that allow people to use them if they didn't want to use the original Magna Carta. It was a subversion, it was a trick. But you
yeah.
also got the Oxford Provisions, which was in 1258, I believe. That
Yeah.
directly relies on 1215, no other Magna Carta. It actually
And
sort of
so does the bill. So
got
does the Bill of Rights. If you look at the
yep,
Bill of Rights, it always reverts back to 1215 every
exactly,
time. So,
exactly.
so
In the Bill of
sorry,
Rights and
mate.
in Magna Carta 1215, both them documents uphold the City of London's sovereignty. No other
Yeah,
Magna Carta really does that.
no. But the bit, but you just sitting down in there as well. In 2000, when we got the Human Rights Act added in, worst mistake you ever make, ladies and gentlemen, standing under Human Rights Act, because that's exactly what it is. It's an act. Nathan said it many times. I've said it many times, and it's 100% true. They are open to interpretation. Our Human Rights Act, your
Yep.
inalienable, unalienable rights are not. They are set in stone. That is the difference. And because they invented, created the Human Rights Act, it's theirs. And
Yep.
that's why they can interpret it whichever which way they feel. Where you're inalienable rights, they've never been able to touch or contravene, hence why they created the Human Rights Act.
Yep, exactly, because they can't change it. They can't change our inalienable rights, or unalienable if it's the English spelling.
Yeah,
They can't change it. They can't mess with it. The same as they can't mess with Magna Carta 1215 because it is actually a treaty. It
yeah,
comes from civil war. It's a treaty between the Crown and the people. Parliament wasn't even formed then, so Parliament can't repeal 1215, but they can
no, they
repeal
can't.
the Crown documents that was later put out under the name of Magna Carta.
Yeah,
But this is the thing, it's like you say, human rights, it's a UN document. So under our constitution, we cannot be governed by a foreign prince or prelate. So that means any
yeah,
foreign body. So if, for instance, any other, like whether it be the Postal Union, whether it be the EU, whether it be the UN, the WEF, CDC, the WHO, none of them can actually have rule over us because it's within our constitution that we have to decide. The people have the power under our constitution. It mean because you got to remember the constitution's ours. Our constitution is actually what binds the crown and parliament to what they can and can't do. It's just
yeah,
what's happened over many years is they've slowly subverted it and took it out of the education system, so people believe that it's no longer there, it's gone, and it's not just not true. Like I said, we've proved this in court. I mean, I think your case was the most recent. I think where you use common because people
yeah,
don't think common laws within our court system and that lot. But Gary proved it literally a couple of months ago. He actually got a solicitor because he was out of the country. He got a solicitor to actually act on his behalf. He instructed his
yeah,
solicitor. She did not instruct him, and he used common law and he won his case for it. It is there, but people just got to
yeah.
understand it is there. I mean, pick up a copy of Howe's Laws of England. It allows about the Magna
This is what you
Carta.
don't
It allows
realise,
about
ladies and
everything.
gentlemen. When you go to a solicitor or a barrister, they work for you. So if you turn around and say to them, "Hang on, I don't want to go that route. I want to go this route. I want to go common law, and I want to do my own statements, etc., and all my own evidence under the loss, harm, and injury." That's how I got my house back. because when the judge read my statement, it meant what it said and said what it meant, as they say. So when he read it and he seen that this man had caused me loss and harm, etc., he had no option but to go with me, because that is the law of this land, common law.
Exactly, something our constables, who should be constitutionally able, because constable is basically an
Yeah,
abbreviation of constitutionally able, they're there to uphold the law of the land, which is our common law and our constitution, and they are not
yeah,
taught it.
no.
They are not taught it.
But when you go legalese, they want to make this off you, so they'll keep having it adjourned and going back and having it adjourned because it suits them. Because
Yeah,
they're making money every time you go back to court. It's more money for you to pay out. If you stand on your rights and do it properly, you only need to go to court once. I only went to court once, and my solicitor said when they rang me, we've done it, doing it your way. And at one point, his solicitor was laughing, saying, "You're going to get this adjourned again." And my solicitor said, "Well, I've read through this and I don't think you are, actually, because this is going to be done differently today. Mr. Clarke standing under common law." And when he went in front of the judge and he read it, he couldn't argue that that's what had happened.
Angela Louise, you're
So,
exactly correct. The solicitors and barristers and that lot, they take an oath to the bar, not the people. For
yeah,
instance, I believe it was in the 90s, I think it was, the barristers, their way of cross-examining was changed. They don't act on your behalf, they don't act as you, they act
no,
for you, which is a big
but
difference.
but the difference is it's your money, ladies and gentlemen, that you're spending. So they have to act on your instructions. If
Yep.
you want to go common law route, they have to do it because you're paying them.
And this is half the problem, because a lot of solicitors and barristers and a lot of people are under the impression that they instruct you. Because we've been told common law and our constitution, our inalienable rights are ours. Um, the legalese they use. I mean, this is the thing. This is the bar website itself. The Bar Association website states in 1953, the Bar
Yeah,
Association changed the law exam to that of a legal exam. This is on their own website. So they haven't been trained in proper law since 1953. Okay,
yeah,
they get a license. I mean, even going through getting a law degree doesn't allow you to practice law, because to
no,
practice law in the way that they want you to, and you don't have to, by the way, we've proven that. But solicitors and barristers, if they want to go through, they get basically they go through the bar exam, and they get a license to practice legalese. Legalese is actually the undoing of law. And what
no,
it's meant to do is it's meant to give them a license, and they're not meant to use it on a daily basis, but they do.
no,
So a lot of these solicitors and barristers, technically speaking, we've said this loads of times before. We're going to try and do it anyway. But a lot of these solicitors and barristers, if they was actually taken to court under the Proceeds of Crime Act,
yeah,
because they're actually committing a criminal offence, because it states
yeah,
quite clearly in their licence it's not meant to be used on a daily basis. It's for the rare occasion that they have to undo law to basically try to basically get to the crux of a matter and to see if something is
yeah,
lawful or not. They're not meant to undo law on a daily basis, and that's what they've actually been doing. They've been undoing our
yeah,
law on a daily basis. It's a
yeah,
crime.
exactly.
Mm.
But if you use it correctly, and you know me, Nathan, the only reason I used that solicitor because at the time I was stuck over in Belarus. I could not get back, and I'd got to get to the court, so I had to go that route. But to be fair, it was done exactly as I requested. In all my correspondence, nothing was changed, and my solicitor was absolutely flabbergasted when I come on the phone. I said, "Well, I'll give the impact statement in." Within 15 minutes, the hammer was coming. Well, the gavel coming down saying, "This Clarke is get his house back. You've got to be out by," and I think it was to get on 3 or 4 weeks. But they still didn't go. They still pushed it the whole way to get more money out of me. The people who was in the house, they made sure I had to pay for sheriffs, but that was the last straw. As soon as the sheriffs was involved, they left the morning the sheriffs was coming. They left early morning, so they didn't actually get thrown out because they knew there was going to be. Because once that hammer come down in there, I'd won my case, and that was it. He'd got to go.
Yeah,
but he just dragged it out for more money to cause me more loss. That's
But
all
this is
that
the
was
thing.
for.
But this is what we've got to get back to, and this is the thing, because under their statutes, you've got to remember as well. It's like, yes, it's technically true. Yes, common law did start with statutes, but along our system, actually especially on the build up to us going into European Union, and a lot since, we've had a lot of statutes put on the books because people don't understand. It's like statutes are not laws. It's called statute law,
No,
but it's not actually laws. Statutes and acts are given the force of law, or can be given the force of law. I mean, I argue this with a judge. If you understand basic English, you should understand that when something can be given the force of law, it is not a law. It can only be given the
no,
force of a law. And this is where they sort of get round us and they trick us, because it is but done by consent. Everything the Crown and Parliament do since 1215 has to be done by consent. That's why we've got the Bill of
yeah,
Rights and those other things, because it's always the same. They always try and take our rights away from us, and we always have to re-establish them and fight for them back. And it's a constant battle of attrition, and we're still going through this now, even more now. I mean, people are starting to wake up a lot more now, and they're starting to understand that. I mean, everybody has that feeling this is wrong, and that is the whole point of common law, because common law is basically right or wrong. If it's right, it
yeah,
will be lawful. If it's wrong, it will be unlawful. And that is the basic crux of the matter. No loss, no harm, and no injury, and no not to be
yeah.
deceptive in your undertakings, which is the fraud part, which statute added later on. But they've been
And that's why
breaching it all the way
that's
along.
why they are acts and why they are statutes. That because they can change them once they make it into an actual law. Like you said, it becomes law.
Hmm. It's not. It won't be a
Whereas if
statute
it
or an act.
no, but what I'm saying is, but once you like with the legislation, that's why it's legislation, and it doesn't become a law because if it was to become law, well, first of all, it should be put to the people. Anything that should be, and this is what we've always said before, anything that they want to actually make a law permanently should be put to the people anyway
Well,
in a
this is the thing.
referendum.
Our laws are actually, I mean, a lot of people seem to be under, and so do a lot of judges actually, seem to be under the impression that judges make case law. It's not. Our case law is usually decided with a jury. It's the jury that decide. A judge just enters
Yeah,
the rule into writing basically, but it's the jury, it's the people that actually make the
yeah,
decision what's lawful, what's not, what we'll accept and what we don't. But
yeah,
it's been subverted. So basically, what's happened is over many years they've changed our system and adapted their own system, so they take our power away from us. That's why we don't have court de jour, trial by jury anymore, because they don't want us deciding that what they're doing is unlawful.
yeah.
2 seconds. Just to answer a quick question.
Exactly right.
Um, yes, Media Mogul, we have to sue them in their private capacity, because any other way you're basically you'll be using legal fictions. These are corporations. I mean, there's a corporation in the very name that you call yourself. The name on your birth certificate is actually the name of the corporation. That's why it's written in all capital letters, and that's how they
Yeah,
use their legal system. They use corporations. Each and every single one of us has a trust. It's a crown trust that's set up with our name as the name of that trust, and that's what a lot of stuff's done within courts. That's why you become a ward of court. That's why a lot of people are bound by statutes, because they go with their legal fiction. So a corporate use of corporation, it's not actually you, it's not the living man or woman. But
no,
the thing is, a fiction, because that's what it is. A corporation is a fiction. A fiction cannot act, cannot do something. Only living man. So if we actually want to bring these people to justice, we have to actually sue them and bring them to justice for their actions as a living man or woman. We
yeah,
can't sue a fiction for something, because a fiction can't do
no.
anything. And this is how they've
That's why
tricked us.
when you're going in against, say, police brutality,
Mm.
example, you sue the constable in his private capacity. You don't sue the West Midlands Police or Yorkshire Police because you're suing a dead entity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a fiction. So a fiction. You mean it does nothing, can do no harm, can do no wrong, and that's how they've got round us in the legal system. This is what we try and teach a lot of people to understand, and this is what we talk about jurisdiction, about common law and the
Yeah,
constitution, because they don't want you using common law, because common law only applies to living man or woman.
yeah,
Legalese and statutes and acts apply to the fiction, the
yeah.
legal fiction. a corporation. They don't apply to living man. That when we have to consent to things because we have to consent to them. Basically, we have to waiver the benefits of our trust to allow them to
yeah,
put these acts and statutes and harm us with, because it's a maximum law. No act or statute or legislation, no legislation can harm the sovereign. And that's what we are. We're
yeah.
sovereign. And that's what we are as a living man and woman. We are all sovereign, and we actually all hold the power. We are the law. That's why we all have a duty to uphold the law and keep the Queen's peace. That's why we have the
Yeah.
army. That's why we have the police, because we all have a duty to actually do it. We just they put uh, basically people in positions of office to do it on a permanent basis rather than us doing it in our private capacity. But we all have to do it
And that's
regardless. It's a constitutional duty.
yeah, and that's why. Why do you think they want to keep it all divided, ladies and gentlemen? Because your sovereignty is very powerful. The
Yeah,
more people that come together, the better it is. So if they can divide the sovereignty with everybody arguing amongst each other, and you'd never unite, these can feel safe in the beds at night. When
yeah,
they see you all starting to rise up and actually, hang on a minute, the left and the right of the, you know, uniting and BLM and all this are all starting to get together. That's why it's all been done to divide you. Because if all these people and all these groups did actually come together, these people would shit themselves because they would suddenly have a big wide awakening that, hang on, these people are uniting, they've had enough.
yeah,
We've had it. And that would be the case. That's why they have to keep it divided. That's why all these groups, you think all these groups come about? They don't. They're planned and they're organised and the people put in there to start them off. All
yeah,
these groups, BLM, um, even like down to the National Front was exactly the same.
yeah. You'll see
It's all done.
any grassroots movements don't get that kind of funding because we just haven't
No,
all got the money individually to start having like multi-million-pound bank accounts to do these things. These are all most of the big groups and
yeah,
stuff like that are put there to take people's attention away from what we actually really need to do, and
yeah,
it puts you down an alley that just by the time you realise, I mean, too much
yeah,
time's gone past. You don't, and it does, and it divides people because by the time you finish going down that garden path, you've offended most of the people. So then you've either got to hold your hands up and sort of go back and say I was wrong, which most people don't want to do, or you carry on
yeah,
going. And this is the thing, they do it to divide, because it's like
yeah,
as I said, take a look at Juncker, take a look at Klaus Schwab, anything they've said. Go on YouTube and search some of their videos. They are constantly and have been constantly saying we must give up our sovereignty because they can't override our sovereignty. It's like our unalienable rights. It's based in our sovereignty. It's our born
yeah,
rights. So each and every one of
yeah,
us was born with sovereignty, and we have unalienable rights which cannot be bought, transferred, or denied by anybody. Not the crown, not Parliament, not anybody. And they don't want us to know that. And that's the part of what they don't want us to know. Because if we start to realise our sovereignty is powerful and we can actually take the power away from them, and that's how we do it under Article 61. It's there in
yeah,
law. That's why the barons, which are the lords, it's the highest court in the land. They got together, and there's 25 of them. They got together and they invoked Article 61 on March 23rd, 2001, lawfully. And that's why you can go into Article 61 now, and you can go under. What you do is you enter it, you basically go under diffidacia. So you enter diffidacia. So basically, you're taking your fealty away from the crown until the crown becomes basically untreasonous. Until they start going by the constitution and acting lawfully,
yeah,
we can take our power away because it's a kind of a symbiotic relationship. You can't have a queen or a king without us. Without our sovereignty, they can't be sovereign because when we're
yeah,
born, we naturally, by nature, bestow our sovereignty onto them, and they are meant to
yeah,
use our sovereignty in their position of sovereignty for our benefit. And that's why Parliament says they are sovereign because they took the power away from the crown. They become basically under the EU. Every country becomes like a kind of like a local council. Their parliaments become a local council, but it means the parliament is sovereign, and they've been slowly leeching our sovereignty away from us. But they can't do it. So as soon as we actually stand up and say, "Excuse me, no, this is not happening," or you go under
yeah,
Article 61, it stops. It stops, and it has to stop. Otherwise, these people are committing treason. It's the highest laws on our books, and despite what Tony Blair tried to do, and he has done a fair bit, but it's unlawful. So we can override it, but it takes the people because we hold the power.
yeah.
Once we do that,
Because if you don't stand up, all that's going to happen is your children will suffer. and your future generations are going to suffer because you've seen what they're going, what they're planning. I mean, Klaus Schwab's already told you that all these young entrepreneur politicians, and he's talking about, you know, he's talking about Trudeau, he's talking about
Angela Merkel,
Angela
um,
Merkel, he's talking about
Macron.
Macron,
Well,
all
this
these
is it.
people,
The World Economic
and
Forum has their
yeah,
own university, and every world leader has pretty much gone through this university, and this
yeah,
university trains them to basically all move countries towards their end goal, which is the World Economic Forum, and a
yeah,
small group of rich billionaires own everything. I mean, this
yeah,
is the thing. This is what a lot of people don't realise. It's like, I mean, most people here are old, probably old enough to understand, and they've seen stories. It's like in Spain and that lot. People bought houses out in Spain, and then the Spanish government want to build a road. So then the person's house, they say, right, that's it. Your house is coming down because we're going to build a road. And the people try and protest it, saying, but I own the house, I own the land. And then they say, no, you don't own the land. You own the bricks and mortar. So all you own is bricks and mortar, and that's what happens in this country. We own the bricks and mortar
yeah,
because they subverted our land rights. So they technically by stealth,
yeah,
we talked about it, it's called blight. They basically took all of our land. Said they're going
yeah,
to manage it. This is part of the Cecily KV Trust and stuff like that. They took all our land and said they was going to manage it, but they've actually just took control of it. And it will get to a point, and when I'm honestly saying, when they say we will own nothing and we will be happy, they mean it because we'll have no choice. We'll be happy with what we're given because we'll have nothing.
yeah.
They can take everything from us until we actually
The
start
more,
standing up and acting
yeah,
against these people. They're going to do it.
the more you let them take, the more they will take. I mean, you know as well as I do, Nathan, blight. Anything nowadays can be blight.
Yep.
You can have just through not maintaining your garden and letting it grow. They can say, right, you're not maintaining your garden. You're bringing the area down. We're taking it off you.
Yeah. We
You
don't.
could, you know,
We
you
take.
could get an old lady who lives on her own and ain't maintaining the garden because she's got arthritis and this and that. She's got no neighbours to help her. The next thing, she's shipped off and her house is took off her.
Yeah. Because
And that's
they're
that's how
they're
simple it is, ladies and gentlemen. People are probably sitting there laughing, but go and look it up.
it's been happening for a very long time. They've been
Yeah,
slowly, surely, but surely, sort of proving this to us, and they've been doing it to the point, and it's been done so many times that most people just don't bother because it's like, well, that's not my problem. It doesn't affect me, but it's got to affect you.
yeah,
Everything's going to start affecting everybody. I mean, we're starting to see it now.
yeah,
Look at the. I mean, we can. It's been said a lot. I mean, we've just had tanks. We've just sent a load of British tanks to Poland because Poland have lent the Ukraine loads of tanks. So we've then sent loads of tanks to Poland to back up Poland to apparently resist the Russian aggression. It's like so. I would like to know this: how can we apparently the whole Russian aggression has stopped grain and everything and fertilizer and all all being shipped to that lot because it's completely stopped the supply lines. So how can supplies be going one way, but it's impossible for them to go the other way? So how can we send all this military hardware? And we are literally spending. We've got people on the streets. We've actually got people since going through the pandemic. People have lost their jobs. They're losing their homes. We've got record numbers. Like I said, it's on par, if not worse, now, technically speaking, than the 1800s. We've got families that are having to use food banks because poverty is that rife. But we can still
yeah,
afford to give um, billions of pounds a year in aid to places like Pakistan, who they've actually said they actually turned around and said they didn't want it, but our government said no, you're having it. You have to have it. We have to give it to you because of the European treaty saying so. They've just built no nuclear submarines with them. So we're helping the countries around the world that are supporting the World Economic Forum
yeah.
and the NWO. We're helping them build an army that can then go against us. It's been happening for years. Same as the Ukraine, we're sending billions and billions of pounds worth of arms to the Ukraine, and we are still being homeless. We are still getting no food. We're still thinking so we are suffering, so they can do another bankers' war.
Yeah. Do you think for serious 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen, that out of the two, which do you think Putin would rather have? He'd rather let you us have the grain and feed us and stop the tanks not getting through than the other way around.
Yeah,
You need to use your common sense here. You can see who's doing it, and it's being done deliberately on purpose. Nobody's stopping anything getting through. It's them. It's our
yep,
governments who are doing it to us ourselves, and we just need to wise up to it and rebel against it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it's not going to end well.
Danny, no, they have actually sent tanks to Poland. Go on my Facebook and that lot. I think I'll put the link up. If not, I'll put it up after the show. But no, they've actually sent tanks to Poland now. They've literally just arrived in Poland. Literally just arrived in Poland. This is the thing, they're hiding a lot of things that's going on. We're not being told most of what's going on. See, they're playing with the feed yet again. We're not getting told a lot what's going on. There's so much that we are yet to actually have in the public domain that we actually a lot of people will get and will understand. I mean, you really have to go searching for this, and this is why they've made it. They don't want things coming out. They don't want us to
No?
know this because they know full well most of the country. If they really knew how much they were spending on arms, if they really knew how much we were sending to other countries who said they don't need it and don't want it, instead of feeding our own people, instead of housing our own people. I mean, take the housing crisis. There isn't technically a housing crisis. The housing associations and the council have admitted they literally 2/3 of the reserves of houses are being kept to one side for some reason. I mean, we can all have a guess why, but
Yeah.
they've got massive reserves of houses that they are just keeping empty, and they're keeping empty for a certain reason. They're not giving it to us. They're
Yeah.
not going to build any more houses. We've known there's been a housing crisis for at least 50 years, but are we building any more houses? No, we dribs and drabs, dribs and drabs, and it's usually housing associations, and it's usually housing companies that actually make a profit off these things. That's why a certain amount of how that their buildings have to go to housing association or council. It's completely
It's
been subverted.
it's like round here, Nathan. If the house goes empty round here where I am, all the shuttering goes on it and everything. But it's not a crisis, because if it was a crisis, then that house would be being shuttered up for a reason, and then the bulldozers would be in to knock it down. But it don't. The Centex goes, the Cytex goes on it, the steel at the front and back to stop them smashing the windows, and that house is left empty for months and months, sometimes years. Now, why are they doing that if there's an housing crisis? Surely it's better to get the steel shuttering off, do it all up, and get it ready for somebody to move in who'll take care of it. But now, while you've hit the nail on the head, it's being done for a reason.
Well, this is the thing. Most of us are old enough to remember there was a time when you could literally walk through a housing estate or something. You could see a house that's empty. You can go to council and say, "I've seen a house that's empty. I need a house. I'd like that one." And most people get put in it. Most people used to get housed quite quickly. But
Yeah.
it's for many, many years now. For some reason, they've been building the minimum and literally the minimum amount legally and lawfully that allow allowed to build. They've been building, so they haven't been sorting out the housing crisis at all. And most of the houses that people are being taken off people are actually being kept. They're being kept empty, or they're being made into something else. It's becoming to the point now where it's too blatant for people to actually stand back now. And this is the thing, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Like I said, have a
No.
look at the World Economic Forum. Actually look at some of their videos and what they say about how humans are going to be hacked, how we're going to own nothing and be happy, how they're going to force us to give up our sovereignty because we have to, because that's the best
They're
thing
not
for the
hiding.
future.
They're not hiding anything anymore. That's the problem. And people are just looking and laughing at it as if it's a joke. Well, the joke's going to be on all of us, because they are going to take everything you own. And
Then,
if you look at
then we
this,
start.
I mean, it used to be on. They used to be on. All the videos for this used to be on YouTube, and you could see the plans for a settlement that was called. You'd be put in settlements. Then they changed it to smart cities. But when it showed you the settlement, it was one big circle with a city in it. And then all around the different perimeters, there was, gates going out that city. And there's going to be, I think it was nine zones in Britain.
Yep, 9 in total.
And yeah, there's 9 zones.
I think that was just
And
in England. 9 zones in England. I think there's meant to be something like
well,
5 to
anyway,
7 in Scotland.
there's 9 zones. And if you lived in zone 1 or zone A, whichever was going to do it, 1 to 9 or A, or zone B, you could not go and visit, say Birmingham was zone A, and then Manchester was zone B. If you had relatives in zone B, you ain't getting out of zone A to go and visit your relatives unless you've got all the correct paperwork. You ain't getting through them barricades and them, like it's like a border crossing.
Yeah,
And
but
if you
this
haven't
is
got the
why.
correct paper, in other words, if you've not been a good slave, you ain't getting to go and visit your family, or the other way around. And you'll be
Exactly.
stuck in these zones, and that's where you're going to live the rest of your lives. There's going to be no going on holiday anywhere because you ain't going to have the money to do it. You're
Well,
just going to get credits, and that's the whole point.
yep, just look at China. It's been happening in China for many, many years. That's why the World Economic Forum is like Klaus Schwab says himself. That's the model, and the reason why in his book he literally states in his book that they want to depopulate the world, and China's one of the only populations they want to keep because for many, many generations they've been basically trodden down to the point where they are just obey authority. And this is what they want. They want people who obey authority. They don't want people who think for themselves or act for themselves. And this is, it's like Gary says, this is where the credit score system comes in. We're starting to see it in this country already. We've seen it. We're seeing it in Australia. We're seeing it in many places. 2 seconds.
Listen,
Let me just answer Danny West. It's like Danny.
yeah,
The reason why the system, they are taught common law and the constitution, but only about 10% of what they should actually be being taught. They're taught enough just to know about it because they technically have to. But most of what happened is basically Gary knows common law, so he instructed his solicitor to act on his behalf. So his solicitor just done what Gary said. Basically, she was just a modem to take paperwork to a court. It was Gary's work that actually done it.
yeah.
Exactly. We're going to have nothing and we'll be happy with it because we'll have no choice. It's like the Chinese. They'll say they're happy because it could be worse. You could be in a concentration camp or something like that. That's why a lot of Chinese people,
But
they're happy with what they've
that's
got.
what these smart cities are going to be, though, Nathan.
Yep. This is where the
They're going to
credit
be
score
big
comes.
open prisons, and
Yep. This
and you ain't escaping
no.
anywhere. And this is what people don't realise. And they're going to push. They're going to pump you with 5G and all these other things all day long. And that's how they're going to depopulate you. They're going to. People need to wake the fuck up and quickly. Look what's happening there when you go to Spain. If you build a sandcastle on the beach and you're caught, £130 fine.
Yeah. Literally a sandcastle on a beach. I mean, that should just show the lunacy of what we're after.
That should
What
show you
we're
where we're heading. And if that's the life you want, even when you can go on a beach and your children build a sandcastle and they come and say, "Oh, your child's just bought a sandcastle and we've got it on video here," so that's all your credit's gone for last week, what you've just been announced. Because you've been
yeah,
and your child has dared to build a sandcastle. You don't realise what's coming, ladies and gentlemen. You better wise up and fast.
Danny, this is why me and Gary and CMW and when we was in the Pendragons, we spent so many, I mean, more years than we care to sort of state, but it's like this is why we spent so many years trying to teach people common law and the constitution so they can actually instruct their solicitors and barristers to act on their behalf for what's best for them. Not because all
Yeah.
solicitors and barristers do actually, they just act for the court system. They're employed by the court, they act for the court. So all they want to uphold is the court system. They don't want to uphold your inalienable rights or your common law rights
No.
or anything in the constitution. That's why we try and teach people so they can do what Gary done. He instructs his solicitor because he pays his solicitor. And that's their job to act on your behalf. He instructed them; they had to do it. So if we all learn the
Yeah.
laws and we know our rights, then
It's
these
my
solicitors
money.
can no longer get away with it. Yeah, but if we all know our rights that lot and we all know how to uphold them,
Yeah.
they can't do it. Otherwise, they're committing a crime.
Yeah. Exactly that. And seriously, you need to start thinking about what we've said because this is getting way out of hand now, and it's not going to get any better. They're going to push for this. And Article 61, like Nathan said, is the way out of it. It is the way to do it. Listen,
It,
people don't
it's been
understand
it's been used for hundreds of years.
yeah, how unique the UK is. It's unique because
I mean,
we do have Article 61 to be able to use. Other countries would love Article 61 to be able to use.
yeah.
But they haven't got it because it's not their constitution. It's ours.
Ours is the first proper really constitution because a lot of people we have this thing where it's like we have no written constitution. We do. It's written down in about roughly 19 to 21 documents. So yes, it is written down. It's just they try and sort of use a clever wording. What it is they keep referring ours to like later constitutions like the American Constitution because that was codified into one document. Ours is not one
yeah,
document. We actually had to fight. The people had to fight for our constitution and our rights over about 800 to 900 years in total it took to get these documents. That's why we need to hold on to these and hold on to them dearly because ours,
yeah.
technically speaking, is the mother of all constitutions. The American
And
Constitution, pretty much all constitutions are based on our constitution.
yeah. And why do you think, Nathan, they've learned? Where do you think they've learnt all this from, ladies and gentlemen? Where they've put all these different documents in the different documents in the Barcelona Declaration, in the Maastricht Treaty, you know, in the in the Nice Treaty. Why do you think they've? How do you think they've managed to do that? And where do you think they got the idea from? They
Yep.
got the idea from us when we did our constitution, because that's what we did. We didn't put it in one document; we put it in several documents, so it's harder to get rid of.
Yeah. We fought for it and we took bit by bit by bit by bit until we did up until very recent until we went in the European Union. We had a constitution that protected the people from the crown and from Parliament and any crown
Yes.
authority. We're actually protected from them and what they do. But
Yeah.
we was silly enough. Well, not it's not even our fault because let's face it, the FCO 30/1048, the Foreign Correspondence Office document,
Yeah.
30/1048, that shows because that was hidden under the Official Secrecy Act for 30 years. So
Yeah.
basically, they hid from us what it would do to us for 30 years, and in that 30 years, it's like Gary said, bit by bit. Treaties come out. It took a bit more, a bit more, a bit more, and because it was done so slowly, a lot of us didn't see it. A lot of us didn't notice it,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden they're trying to spring on us. But what they don't want, and that's why they want rid of our constitution. That's why they attack it so much. Even though Parliament, if it suits them, you see Jacob Rees-Mogg, you see a lot of MPs now in Parliament. They'll quote the Bill of Rights, Magna Carta, and certain bits like when it suits them. When it suits them for an argument, they'll use it. But they don't want us using it because it's ours to use against them. It's not theirs to use against
Well,
us.
Gina Miller used it. John Bercows used it just
Yeah,
all recently.
well, this is it. Gina Miller tried using the Bill of Rights to keep us in the European Union. The problem is, um, it states in the Bill of Rights about the government's powers to legislate and things like that. That's why it was overthrown. That's why the
Yeah.
Gina Miller case 2017, Regina versus Miller, actually failed because it's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
So as long as the people keep going along with it and acquiesce, it can keep being done because we are basically all of us by voting and by acquiescing, we're kind of personally agreeing to all these things. It's like when you use the
Yeah.
Human Rights Act, you're actually agreeing of your own accord to waiver your inalienable rights because you want to use these instead. That's a
Yeah.
personal choice you're making. It's not them forcing it on you. You're making it.
That's one thing I've never done. No, never will. Stand
This
under
is
the
it.
Human Rights Act. I've always
No,
stood under my unalienable rights, always, and always will.
I think I've
And
never
look where
voted.
I've been, Nathan. During the pandemic, when people was locked in their houses and couldn't travel anywhere, I went to Belarus 3 times, 4 times, backwards and forwards
Yeah, and
during it.
like you said, on every step of the way, because some people go, well, I did this, I was able to travel. No, a lot of people travelled within the country, but Gary actually travelled outside of the country out and back, didn't wear a mask,
No,
didn't have his travel stopped, didn't get put in prison, didn't get put in any camps or anything like that, for
no,
quarantine or anything like that.
never took any
Uh,
tests.
I mean, look at one of the times you went there. You literally in every train station you had to go to like about 2 or 3 train stations, and then to the airport, and you had to deal with the police every single time. And every single time they
Yeah,
had to let you go because if
yeah,
they dared to go against your unalienable rights, they are looking at a crime of treason.
yeah,
It's a very serious crime. It's an automatic removal from their oath of office, and it's technically life imprisonment if they're found guilty. It still
yeah.
holds
And
life
it's
imprisonment
also a massive, big compensation claim for me.
because they
That's
can't.
why they
Look,
don't go against your unalienable rights if you use them properly, because they
well, this
can't.
Well, this is the thing. This is the hard part about teaching because you've got a lot of people out there that are probably trying, but a lot of people are not taking the time to actually learn and understand properly. So a lot of people are trying to rush to do things. I would say they're trying to rush to do things, and they're actually
Yeah,
getting things wrong. They're not using it in the proper manner. They're not using it for the right reasons. So there is some people out there using it for personal gain, but I do believe most people are trying to do it for the right reasons. But if you don't use it properly, they can dismiss it because wording is everything, action is everything. Actus reus and mens rea, mental intent and physical action. Both of them
Yeah,
have to be correct, otherwise they don't have to uphold it. That's why it's so
yeah.
easy to pick to quote the human rights, because you don't have to quote the exact human right. But if you're talking about common law, you have to uphold that common law right in it itself. You can't just say common law and it gets done, because they dismiss it, because it's like, well, you don't know it, you don't even know your rights, and if you don't know your rights, you have none. But because it's
Yeah.
not ours, because it's the UN, because it suits them, if you say human rights, they'll most of the time they'll just accept, oh right, you're going under human rights. It's done to trick us. It was done in the
They
first
hate
place.
it. When you go under your inalienable rights, they hate it because they know they can't contravene that. They can't interpret that any other way than it says.
Yeah, exactly. The dictionary definition, unalienable, means exactly what it is. There's no,
Yeah,
like Gary says, there's no kind of thinking it's something else. There's no
yeah,
sort of say, oh well, I'm going to interpret it this way. There's no other way of interpreting. You cannot go against it. It's unalienable, so you
yeah,
can't alienate
exactly.
against their rights. And this is
Yeah,
it's the most powerful thing we have. Same as our constitution.
yeah.
It's all based on the same thing. This is millions and millions of deaths. And we go on about the wars and that lot and stuff like that, but there is absolutely millions and millions of deaths. Probably more deaths have actually come from civil wars to uphold our rights and get our rights than ever has in any war ever.
And now we
And
just
this is
got, and now we just seem to be wanting to just can't give them away fast enough.
and
You
this is
know,
what I think they've got to try and make us desperate. And this is the thing: if people think that acquiescing is going to make things easier, it's going to make things. It's not, because the more you acquiesce, the more they're taking it. It's the old
yeah,
adage, isn't it? If you give them an inch, they will take a mile, and that's what they've been doing for a very long
exactly.
time. And they're going to continue to do it. Like I said, when Klaus Schwab and his mates say we will own nothing and we'll be happy, that's exactly their intention. We will
Yeah,
own nothing.
yeah. And when you're putting these smart cities flats, you're going to lose your, what's the word I'm looking for? Individuality. Because every flat in these high-rise flats in these smart cities will be pokey little flats, probably like a bed sit, and every flat will be decked out exactly the same. You'll have a telly, you'll have a microwave, you'll have a fridge, you'll have a cooker, you'll have a washing machine, you'll probably have a bed settee, but it'll all be the same in every single flat. Whichever way they're going to decorate it out, every flat will be identical. You're going to lose your individuality. There'll be no, I want to take my 18-inch telly or my 17-inch telly from my house to this flat. I mean, sorry, that ain't going. It's already all decked out. And it's going to be done for a reason, because you won't own nothing, like Nathan's just said. Everything that's in that flat when you move in is government owned. So if you speak out, they'll come and take your television off you for a week. And then if you speak out again, they'll take your washing machine for a week and then put
It's
it back.
it's like a
And
child having their Xbox removed.
yeah,
Put it that way. It's like
and
a
that's
child
how
having
it'll
their.
be. It'll be, well, next time you tell you'll be gone for good. And then you think, oh, I ain't going to pay for anything. Oh, they're going to look after me and this and other. You'll be getting meters in these things, and what you'll have on the meter, you'll have so much water, so many credits for the water, so many credits for your gas and your electric. And if you're overindulgent and you use them credits in 3 days, it's no good moaning. They'll say, well, you've used a week's supply in 3 days, you're going to have to wait 4 days before you can have any more. And that's how it's going to be. You are going to be trained like a chimp to live the way they want you to live. No, no, no. You ain't going to be able to use all the electric you want when you want. You're going to have so much electric per week, and you'll learn. You'll learn by your mistakes of just how much electric per day you can use.
Exactly. This is why they want to bring in the universal income, because the universal income, and this is objection. I'm not saying things just so I don't get my channel taken out, but universal income. This is objection that I'm sort of stating. We'll all have a universal income, so we'll all be on the same income. So what they'll do is they'll work out how much we're allowed, or how much we should be spending on electric, water, food, stuff like that, depending on what they think we're worth, and that's all we'll have. And it'll be, it's like Gary says, we won't own anything. So if your washing machine breaks, that's going to be down to you, and they're going to say, well, this shouldn't have broken. You're misusing it, so they'll either take it away from you, or when you barely got enough money just to get the basic stuff, you'll be charged to repair that. at the
Yeah.
government's cost. That mean that they're already doing it with the cashless society. The cashless society is worse than most people think, especially when we come to things like tax. I mean, this is the thing, right? Part of our constitution is uh, no taxation without representation. It means that we actually get to have a say whether we are taxed as much as we are or not. That's the thing that most people don't understand. But if we go cashless, we don't have that chance of removing our money and withholding our money until they can prove that this is legitimate. They will just take it straight away from your bank
They've
account.
yeah, they've already showed you what they can do when they go cashless. They've just showed it in Canada when they had
Yeah.
that big truckers movement. Everybody who was on that truck, they did the facial recognition and they blocked all the cards so they couldn't spend any money.
And not just their cards. People keep saying Bitcoin safe, Bitcoin safe. They stopped everybody's Bitcoin accounts as well.
Yeah,
They froze everyone's Bitcoin account. Any form of income they froze. So it would be
yeah.
Bitcoin,
No,
anything
I'm
like that.
just, yeah, I'm just trying to say that now. Just basic credit card, I'm about
Yeah,
what
but they
everybody's
done everything.
got.
Yeah, but
They'll
people
stop
think.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people think that Bitcoin and that's safe. So well, they can stop that, but I still have a Bitcoin. You won't have your Bitcoin. Like I said, go and research it. In Canada, they froze Bitcoin accounts, so people didn't
If
have
you
their
think
Bitcoin
these
anymore.
people, if you think these people ain't behind all this Bitcoin and all this bullshit, alternative, so-called alternative currency, you want your head looking because you don't think they're going to do all this and then let somebody come along with an alternative currency that's going to blow theirs out the water and give you your freedom, dear. That's going to stifle your freedom. So these people have designed all of these things.
Well,
They've
this is the
already
thing. Is
got
that,
people on the inside doing all this. You're just being led into another psyop,
well, this is the
if you
thing.
like.
Take Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Okay, now I've got a couple of friends that do it, and I've actually tried contacting some so-called Bitcoin experts and stuff. And I've asked one question. Okay, it's like most of us know this. You can't spend anything in this country which is not legal tender. Okay. Now, as far as I'm aware, and I've not seen any evidence to say it is, cryptocurrency isn't legal tender. So what happens if it doesn't become legal tender? We can't spend it. It means they can do away with it. They can outlaw it, so it can't be spent. So again, you won't be able to spend it on food or anything like that. I mean, they can ban you from it. I mean, let's face it, they're trying to bring out legislation in this country now where your employer and the bank can decide what you're allowed to spend your money on. They're actually trying to bring legislation in to do that now. They are
Yeah,
really, really pushing for it.
they will. So basically, if your child has just had a new phone for his birthday this year, and next year he wants to upgrade the new version, and you go to buy it and they say, hang on a minute, you can't have it because your child only had a brand new phone last year. That one should last them 5, 6 years. You ain't having a new phone. You don't realise what you're letting yourselves in for by getting rid of cash.
This is
Trust
this,
me.
so. This is the thing. They are literally they are saturating us from all angles. So that we're being attacked from so many angles. A lot of people can't keep track of it, and this is the problem. And we're being swamped. We're literally being saturated. So there is so much they're doing from so many different angles, and like Gary says, they're doing a lot of it under the radar, bit by bit by bit, to the point where we'll find ourselves in a position where we'll be in a 12-foot hole with no ladder to get out. This is
Yeah.
what people got to realise. Start stand up now. I mean, most of us want to, and don't start thinking you can just become, I don't know, something to do with common law, and you can just, I don't know, you can outdo the police and that lot, because it won't be lawful. The only lawful manner we actually have of actually taking back control, because under Article 61, technically we become the Baron's army. So we then help the barons to seize the crown estate. So when you're seeing people go and take libraries or town halls and stuff like that, Article 61 does not allow for that. You're only allowed to take Her Majesty's property. So it's got to be the Queen's stuff. It can't be our public buildings. It doesn't work like that. Anybody doing that, I would say, if you are trying to take a public building like a library or something like that, please read Article 61 properly and understand what it states, because it clearly states in there we can only take the Queen's properties. We can only take Crown buildings. We cannot take public buildings. And there's a massive difference. And this is where a lot of people put down. And this is where domestic terrorism comes into it. Because unless you're abiding by Article 61 and doing it by the true lawful process, and that means no gimmicks, you can't just make something up and think that you can do it. You have to go by the law. If you go by the law, you'll be protected. But any other way, it's domestic terrorism because you're doing it unlawfully. So anything
Well,
unlawful, they can override.
but basically, you're taking all the pressure. You're taking all the pressure off yourself by letting the barons do it.
They're playing with the feed again.
I've had less of a signal here than I have in Russia.
Well, this is the thing. Like your picture's not coming up in the studio now. Mine keeps doing it. I don't know if people in like watching it are seeing it, but it's like our video feeds are being played with. I don't know if they're seeing it, but they keep playing with mine. They keep kicking you out.
Yeah.
See, we're not allowed to talk about this because this is the truth. I mean, we're pointing out things, and this is the thing. We're taking their own documents and what they've put in their own documents, and we're stating the truth about them, and we're not allowed to do that because we wasn't meant to wake up to this, all people. So everybody that's woke up to this, everybody that's got into doing it all, everybody that's like trying to fight this and doing it in different ways, and I do commend every single one of you, but please start to understand that it's got to be done in a certain way. It's got to be done in a certain way. If we don't do it in a certain way, then we are gonna. All we're gonna do is give them more powers to act against us. Are you there, Gary? They're going to play with the feed again, so we're going to allow that happen to stop in a minute soon. But this is the thing; it has to be done lawfully. If we do it lawfully, it's got to be done lawfully and peacefully. If we do it, under Article 61, and we act within the law, there is no recourse for them. They can't overthrow it because all that happened is we could go and throw them all out of Parliament now, but under our laws, because as Gary says, our constitution is very unique. So we could go and throw them all out now, but all that happened, there will be a court hearing, and then they will just overthrow what we've done because they'll say it was not lawful. So it'll be overridden, and then they'll give every excuse. Say, well, they misused certain bits, so they'll just give us them more. It's like, for instance, under the Bill of Rights. Okay, now our right to process is protected under the Bill of Rights. Okay, it's the Bill of Rights that actually allows Parliament to legislate. So if our right to protest and the government's right to legislate are on par of each other in the same document, one cannot override the other. So the government can't legislate to take something away that has the same force of law as their right to legislate, but they're trying to. I think you're muted, Gary. You're muted, Gary, mate. Gary, you're gonna have to unmute your mic. That's it. Nope, still not hearing you. Right, they're just gonna play with it now for me. Moving ringing back. No, still muted. No, not hearing you. I think they're going to land up playing on the feed now because this is what usually happens. Do it again. This is getting silly. But this is the thing, we have to do it lawfully, people. So if you're going to do anything, please do your research. Please do it lawfully. Please do it peacefully. Because if we don't, they are going to override it. And all we're going to do is give the police even more powers to intervene before we even get anywhere near doing it. It has to be a united front. We have to do this together. So we need to start getting unity before we can start thinking about action. And this is what we should. We shouldn't be running half cocked, all trying to do our own thing. We need to come together because we can actually attack them from many different angles, like they're doing to us. But we need to do it properly. So we need unity before we have action. Once we've got unity, we can all then, as separate groups, if need be, we can all take a different angle and all go at them from a different angle. But as long as it's done lawfully, we can't just do whatever we want. It doesn't work like that, and we can't act out of frustration, which most people, I understand, are very frustrated. They just want something done. Well, this is the thing. The process is there. If we just do the lawful process, we're halfway there. We just need to do it. This is the thing. Do the lawful process. It is a duty. It's actually by royal command. So whether you're in the army, the navy, the police force, anything like that, whether you're in parliament, if you have to, by law, under the Queen's command, you have to go into Article 61. That is her command to protect her sovereignty, to protect the crown, and to actually get the crown to act lawfully. because she has to. We have to stop her parliament. We have to stop her crown authorities. We're the ones that have to do it. She can't do it alone. Let's face it, she's a very old lady. She's not going to be able to walk around and tell everybody off. And if we don't do it, no one else will. That's why the Barons invoked it, because it gives us the power. Right, I think Gary's not going. I think Gary's been kicked out permanently. Right, well, I'm going to say good. Is he back? Maybe. We'll give it a go. Hopefully, fingers crossed. This is what usually happens. Still can't hear you. Right, that your mic isn't connected. It's saying, Gary. See if we can get Gary in for the last bit. Is it not letting you? No, it's not happening. See, this is going to be happening a lot. This is, I mean, we're still getting it on Facebook, even though they let us go live together. Right, what I'll do is we're going to have to leave it there. We'll be live again in the next few days or next week or so. We are actually planning on to do a show soon. We're going to have some of the British Resistance group and hopefully some people from other groups on. We're all going to have a little discussion about common law and about possible solutions and about what the different groups are doing. Hopefully they can all sort of like tell you a bit about themselves and that lot, so you can understand that there's many of us now. The unity is happening. We are starting to come together. So please have a bit of hope. The right people are uniting. We will get this done. We'll have a show with many of them on, and we can all have a discussion and all put our 2 pennies worth in. Just carry on with the unity. Let's drop the egos. Let's get the unity before the action, and let's do the actions right. Right. I'll say goodnight from Gary because he's obviously been kicked out, and I'll say goodnight from me. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and please share this if you can. It'd be much appreciated. Let's get the message out there. Let's get things done right because it's about time now. We all have to act. There's no sitting back and letting people do it for you. It doesn't work like that. Each and every single one of us has we have a duty, so we have a responsibility to all actually act on this. We can't just sit back and go, oh, it's all right, they're doing it. It doesn't work like that. It's the same as if you see a crime bit happening, and they are committing crimes. They're a tumultuous assembly. If they are committing crimes against the people, if you sit back and you're allowing this to happen, you're actually part of the crimes. You're just as guilty as them. So you have to stand up. You have to do something. You have to physically get involved. You have to physically use your sovereignty against them. All right. Good night from Gary. Good night from me. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Right, everyone, stay safe and be careful. Remember, learn, research. Let's do this properly. Unity before action. Bye, everyone.